We will get started in just a minute. Actually, 3 to be exact. And I'll go tell my family in a minute that they need to be quiet. They need to be quiet. Anybody have boys? Boys are loud, typically. Almost ready. You can see the sun's finally coming through my windows a little bit. It's so awesome. Maybe that means spring is coming. That'd be amazing if it was. I'm gonna just let Facebook know that I am live. Oops. Alright, people, we can go ahead and get started. I think we're ready. 6:01, not bad. I'm only a minute late. Okay, so welcome this evening. I am just dipping in for a really quick card tonight. This is the card we'll be making. And we're going to be using Bloom by Bloom photopolymer set. This is out of the Occasions mini catalog. It's also sold as a bundle, and there's, I think it's 4 little punches that come with it. Those are currently on back order right now, but they are coming, so just be patient with that. So I'm just going to be using these two big images right here, but this is a super fun set. Bold sets like this have lots of different techniques that you can use with them. Things that you couldn't normally do with just the fine line images that you have to color in. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I've done ahead of time is I have mounted I wouldn't say mounted, but I've already set up my Stamparatus. I've got my 2 plates right here. I've got my leaf stem on one, which is my top one, and I have the flower on the other. Hang on one second here. See if we can get caught up. And so what I'm going to do is a little different of a technique. So one look I like, and I don't know if you can see this with the camera, but if you could see the shine on the flower, I'm going to show you how I made this look embossed, but it's with clear powder and my regular ink pads, and I'm going to show you how I did that just to make this nice little quick simple card. And because it's set up in my Stamparatus, we could do several of these if I want to just crank out a bunch of them. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I've got my melon mambo here and my lemon lime twist, my case under there that keeps it from bouncing around everywhere. And I'm going to just take my melon mambo, and I'm not pressing super hard. If you press really super hard, you're going to end up getting ink all over your plate and everything. I'm just lightly tapping it on there. And we're just going to close our plate down here, carefully bring that up. And so because it's a Stamparatus, another thing that I want to do is I actually want to stamp this like 2 or 3 times. You don't have to, you can leave it like that if you want, but I really want this melon mambo to be really vibrant. So you can see it's going to get, and I think one more time. Got some fuzz going on there. Alright, and so let's do this last one. We can even give it a second or two to just soak off the paper, or soak off the stamp onto the paper. So that's a nice, vibrant melon mambo going on there. So I'm going to clean my stamp off. You can use your chamois if you want, your Stampin' chamois. I just have the only downside with the wipes is that you get fuzz, so you have to be really careful. With the chamois, which I don't have with me right now, there's no fuzz, and I do like using it. I just didn't have time to get it all wet and ready to go before the video. It's been kind of a crazy day. So we've got our melon mambo done. So let's go ahead and do the stem. And I'm actually, normally I just do the top, but I'm going to turn this off to the side because I think it would be easier for y'all to see it. And it's all set up, so it doesn't really matter what direction. I can turn it and still make it work. So same thing, I'm not squishing this totally down, but we are going to stamp this like 3 times because I want a nice rich green color. Again, making sure that it's placed, you know, level set again, basically, because the photopolymer and the ink are really sticky, so they might pull up your paper just a little bit, but that's okay. If you keep it in the same spot every time, if you know where you put it, you can reset it. Okay, let's do this one more time. I think I have a piece of fuzz on my stem too. There's a little, sometimes that happens. This photopolymer is sticky, so sometimes it picks up fuzz or bits of paper, fiber from my ribbons or whatever. Alright, let's give that paper a chance to soak the ink off. And we have this nice, really beautiful bold flower. Now we could leave it like that if we wanted to, but I want to add just a little bit more pizzazz to it. So I'm going to clean off my stamp, and since we have our leaf ready to go, we'll start with that one. And so this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to take a Versamark pad, and because this makes it, this is possible to do because of the Stamparatus. It makes it easy to do. It's not that it's impossible without the Stamparatus, but the Stamparatus makes it so easy to do this technique. So I'm just taking a Versamark, I inked up my leaf and stem here, putting it right over the top. And I'm going to do that one more time just to make sure it's very bold and covered with this Versamark. Okay, that's good to go. Put this back in its spot here. And we're going to turn this because I would like to put the other plate back on. I love that you can remove the plates with these. It just makes this so versatile. This is just such a great tool. That's why I own 3 of them. So, and you know what? I use all 3 often. Okay, so now we're doing the flower part. Same thing, putting it right over the top. Make sure you reset your thing if it gets pulled up. And again, just to make sure it's good covered with our Versamark. Alright, now that that's completely covered, it's still wet because Versamark stays wet long enough for us to do this. Now we're going to take our clear embossing powder. And one thing I did mention, and I will admit that I'm terrible about remembering this, is to remember to do your embossing buddy. Okay. There we go. Alright, now when you look at it, it's going to be kind of powdery looking. And so you see it's kind of dull. And that's going to change when we put our heat tool to it. And one thing I recommend is you get your heat tool running for about 30 seconds before you put it up to your paper. We won't let it get quite that long here just because we're on the video, but if you let your heat tool get nice and hot before you actually take it to the paper, it helps keep the paper from warping and it melts it a lot faster. So I like to start in the back, just get it warmed up, and then I go to the front. And you can see that starting to melt already. And you know it's all done when it goes from looking like a powdered sugar to a nice shiny frosting. And it's good to kind of turn it in your lights and make sure that it's all shiny. So I love how that looks. It's just such a nice rich color, and with that clear embossing over the top, it really brightens it up. The next thing that we're going to do is actually I'm going to take this and run this through my rectangle, stitched rectangle. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. So to show you how to do the rectangle, I thought it would be handy to give you a quick tip. I know I might have given this tip before, but just in case you've never seen this tip before, if you have problems with dies that have straight edges like this, run it through at an angle. I just have my magnetic platform, then a cutting plate, and then I'm going to put, let me get this straight first before I turn it. You just have some washi tape, and instead of running it straight through, we're going to turn it at an angle, because when you make it straight, it's almost like the rollers in here going over a speed bump, and it doesn't cut as well. So I'm going to slightly turn it so it'll start at this corner and work its way out, and it'll cut beautifully. These have been some of my favorite framelits ever, is these stitched rectangles, and they have stitching, faux stitching on the inside and the outside of the shape. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So when you cut it, there's stitching on this side, and there's also stitching in here. Just carefully peel that off, and so we have this nice little faux stitching going around all the edges. So that's how you can cut your stitched rectangle. Now to save time, I've already did a stitched rectangle, just the one up from this one. And I just have a 5.5 by 8.5 sheet of regular white cardstock. I wish I had some of our thick one, but our thick cardstock. I'm out right now. But I love the Whisper White Thick and the Whisper White, not Whisper White, but Whisper White Thick, and also the very vanilla thick cardstock for my card bases, because it makes them very sturdy. So this is some of our matching paper that's out of that suite. And we're going to just stick this right to the front. And I'm just turning this up to make sure it's like level, nice and straight. A little bit of embossing powder. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this on here, but I want to put a little accent on the side. So I've got this punch, and this punch comes from the punch box. I can't remember the name, but I'll show you what's all in the punch box. I don't want the entire tag, so I just am going to take the edge of my cardstock and bring it down just enough so I have enough room to put some adhesive right here, but the cool scallop part will hang out. Okay, so if you did the whole tag, it would be, this would be the whole tag, but we don't want the whole tag today. So, and I'll show you that punch in just a little bit, so, or that punch box. So I'm going to stick a little bit of adhesive on that, and I just want this to go in the upper left hand corner. Just gives a nice little accent. And we'll just try to get this as centered as we can. And now we'll do our flower. And that will just go in the center of the green, just like that. So now she's looking a little plain, but that's okay because we're going to add a greeting on here, and we're going to add some dots. So the greeting comes from this stamp set right here. It's called Around the Corner. And I absolutely love this little greeting right here that says "You Matter." I love it. One of my favorite songs talks about how you matter, and that's one of my favorite songs. And so we're going to stamp that. Let me get some, we have some white left over. See if we have enough left over for, just barely enough. Okay, this will be perfect. I try to use up every last scrap if I can. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in scraps, but I just got to get better at repurposing them so they don't get thrown away. So I'm just pressing this down, letting the paper soak it off the stamp, and we have a nice, good, solid image. The next thing we'll do, my paper snips are not nearby, so I'm just going to use my giant scissors. This should still work. Now I could just leave it stamped that way. I could have maybe die cut a square. We have lots of different sizes rectangles in that nice rectangle framelit set, but I actually wanted to just cut this apart, and I'm just following the line that goes all the way around the stamp. It's a nice little block, so it's not too hard. And once you have that all cut all the way around, and we're just going to stick it to the front, and you can use glue dots if you want, or you can use liquid glue. I'm going to go ahead and use my snail because it's handy. Just going to rub off the excess adhesive that's around the sides. Stick that on there. I'm going to roll that across. And I really don't mind if it's not straight. I kind of want it not perfectly straight. Alright, the next thing that we're going to do is add just a few dots. Just have a few of our epoxy dots. We're going to add, it's a fuzzy day. I have fuzzies all over the place today. You can just add as many or as few as you like. I'll put this one up here. Okay, nice sparkling. So I want to add just a little bit of white baker's twine. So I'm going to take 2 loops here. I'm just going to tie them in a knot. I guess I will have to grab my liquid glue because snail won't work too well. Alright, so I'm just tying them in a knot is all I'm doing. And then I'm just going to pull it. I like doing it right off of the roll because then I can serve on string that way. So I have a lot left over on this one side, but I would have had a lot more if I just cut something off. Alright, so I have this cute little bow, and we're going to glue that here. Let me grab some Tombow. You always have to watch out for Tombow because sometimes if it's been sitting upside down, it'll explode on you. So fortunately we have some wipes nearby. This is why liquid glue and I have like a love-hate relationship. I just need one tiny drop. So that's one thing. Never take the Tombow right to your cardstock right away. Always check it first because sometimes it will be exploding on you. Alright, so now that that is on there, our card is done. Isn't that pretty nice little shine? Nice simple card. Now if you wanted to, you could definitely match the same technique with this one right here. Just use your Stamparatus to do that, and it'll have that nice shine there as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this card. Go ahead and give it a try. Try something new, and then share the love by sending out some cards and sharing some kindness. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you later.